guys. I'm a typical automotive enthusiast who's really good about taking information off the internet, but then not contributing back to it. So I wanted to give a quick update on what I learned on a recent project for my Porsche. I have a 2001-ish Boxster S that I use primarily as a track car these days. It's mostly stock, but I'm trying to tweak it up to make it a little bit more compliant on the track. I'm putting new race slicks on it, or race tires, and these have a common problem of melting the power steering pump because of overheating, specifically when you have track tires on and you're really putting a heavy load on it. I'm already running an undersized pulley on it to help alleviate the problem, but no one wants to blow out a power steering pump and spew oil all over the track. So anyway, the best way to do that is to add a power steering pump or a power steering cooler. L&N Engineering, great firm, actually sells a kit, and I think it's around $700 for the cooler, which is a fair amount of money for the cooler. What I've done is actually added almost the exact same setup for a fraction of the cost. And here's what I've done, is the cooler on the front is a, you can see it here, there's the brand, I think it's C-Tarb. Anyway, it's the same brand that is used by L&N Engineering, so I assume that the capacity is about the right size. It's a 7-row cooler mounted in the same location that L&N Engineering recommends that it's being located at. There's also two connectors on here. I'm using, I think it's for the 3/8 inch size connection, which is actually, I think, an AM6 specification. To connect this thing to the cooler, it's literally a couple of zip ties. That I have reinforced, which is with a grommet in there so you don't pull through. And then, very important to note as well, if I can zoom into it here. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. There's some pieces of foam or rubber that you want to put between the two radiators just to make sure that they're not clanking around. So this one's fairly tight. And then you zip tie it on the back side of the condenser as well. A couple of things that I learned through the process is that, first of all, the hosing that I'm using, I've tried to match the sizing of the return line for the existing power steering pump, and I thought it was a 3/8. Quite frankly, I think it's a metric size. I ended up using a 7/16, which looks like it's almost exactly the same size. This is a 7/16 that I think I just picked up from the local auto store, SAE 30R7. It's a good heavy-duty hose. The only downside is technically the SAE specs on this has a 50 psi burst strength, but the return line on a power steering system is incredibly low pressure, so I'm not really worried about it. The temperature range on these is also high enough that I think it's about 250 degrees, so we should be fine there as well. So this part is pretty straightforward. To get to the radiator on the front, you're going to want to pull off the bumper. There's other items out there that show people how to do that. Not a big deal to pull off the bumper. The other thing I learned is actually how to incorporate it inside in the existing power steering system. If you look at the actual rack, let me get a light on this. If you look at the rack, there are, there we go, there you can see it. Let me try that again. On the rack itself, there's the existing rack. On the lower line that you can see there of the two, the one that looks black in this picture, I literally just, that's the existing line, and I just cut that line, as you can see, about 3 to 4 inches back from its housing. That line typically went to the rear of the car. Now you have that going forward. So there's the old line, and it moves to, there's the junction, and then it's the new line going forward, and you run that right up to the front of the cooler that I pointed out before. In parallel, you can see that there's this other line right there sitting in front of it. That's the return line. That's going to go back to where this line started. And so you're going to put another junction up underneath the car. It's a little harder to get to but you know, it's that line is about 4 or 6 inches down from the existing. And as you can see there are the two return lines. The older one is the original high pressure line. The one with the junction in it is the revised return line. And on the left hand side where the band clamp is where the original line was cut. So the net is the overall cost for the adapters, the cooler, the hosing was $175, $200, which is significantly less than the $700 that L&N charges. I think the only downside to this is you actually physically have to cut your power steering return line, which sounds like a big deal and kind of a one-way option once it's cut, but seems to be working out just fine. I'm going to be tracking the car here in a couple of weeks again, and I'll let you know the results, and if for some reason I have any failures. Good luck, guys. Bye-bye.